All right, then. Oh. You girls ready?
Yes, sir.
All right. Pass your love notes after class. Okay.
Oh, come on now.
All right. Is anything left over from yesterday? Anybody remember yesterday? What was the point? Or the points?
Just be still.
That's a mean, so not the end.
What was the lesson? All I can remember is persona.
Well, okay. Well, I did it for me anyway, so that's cool. The point that I'm trying to work through is how do you be in the world and not of it, and what does all that mean? Questions about a religion that's been around this long and it still has most people going, you know, we know it, or we think it, but somehow there's only occasions of immediacy, and we spend most of our time in thought, and most of us are confined to the thoughts that are possible within the English language. That in itself is very confining. It has some positives, but it also has some limits. There are certain feelings you can have in an English language, but if you were Japanese, you would have different kinds of feelings based on that whole language. And we have become, I think, trapped, or like Paul Simon and them said, and the people bowed down and prayed to the neon god they made. They're praying to a God that is no God. And that's no different than the story of the golden calf, or how idolatry is talked about in the scriptures. Functionally, the forms may change, but the effect of it is the same. And the belief about a particular story or a mythic world is not real. What makes something about that real is when someone gives themselves to it, or a body of people give themselves to it. The church is referred to as the body. And let me clarify, when I'm talking about the church, make sure you know what I'm talking about. I differentiate the true ecclesia, or the body, the real people, from the paper idea of a church. Okay? Because then you hear, for as long as I've been alive, I hear people say, well, I'm spiritual, I ain't religious. Okay, I understand the feeling, but most of the time we don't go much past that. What does that mean? Is this making y'all hear what I'm saying a little bit? Because I don't give a shit about your religion, my religion, any religion. I want to know God. I want to know what's real, what's possible, who I am, what I'm supposed to be. Religion is based on authority that's handed down.
It's not doctrine. Is that?
Yeah. You know, that if you were in whatever Plymouth Rock and you were one of those folks, you would have a certain belief that if you had to dress a certain way and talk a certain way and talk about life in a certain way in order for God to love you, kind of thing. If you're Pentecostal, if you're Baptist, there's little generalizations or so, but there's little variations. And what I was trying to do yesterday is at least try to verbalize where I am. I don't need y'all to be where I am. I'm not trying to convince y'all anything, okay? Because I ain't your guru. And one of my primary understandings from what Christ says is there are no gurus. Don't go looking for gurus. That's a trap. It's a fake. There's always a little fat man behind a curtain doing this. Not always with malice intent. I've been doing psychotherapy with folks for 30 years. And there's a sense in which they need to believe in me to start with. They need to think I'm a guru or whatever, or somebody that knows something that they don't. They need to believe so that perhaps somewhere in that process, in that interaction, they will begin to know. You know? And a lot of times what I've found is the only good stuff happens when they start going, "You're a son of a bitch," or you know, similar to the Dorothy thing. And then they have to begin to take personal responsibility and learn about who they are, and not just go, "Mr. Steele said." Because if they're saying Mr. Steele said, they're not. That's not what I'm intending. Because I understand. I experience my own depravity, my own lack of knowledge. And the more that I learn, the less that I know. And I've heard people say that for years growing up and thinking, well, I need to say that so I can be profound and cool. It's a reality to me now. Or beginning. And I'm sure it'll be even more reality 10 years from now. We addressed briefly the idea that God is the creator. And even if someone's not religious in just philosophical terms, without a creator outside of who we are, then we have tended historically to become trapped by people who claim that place. Kings and governments and whatever, churches. And the idea or the institution of the state or the government or the church or whatever becomes more important than the people in it. You know? It led to crusades, and it led to when they did all the witch trials and the whatever in the Spanish Inquisition, all that kind of stuff. That the state or the church has, we care about you so much that because you don't believe what we say, we're going to burn you, we're going to torture you, we're going to whatever. You know? And doing that in their mind or in their logic as it's God's will. Because we're trying to save them from eternal hell, so we're going to burn them. Okay? Because we know better than whatever. And that's an institutional thing. It becomes demonic. In my opinion. I don't think it's the Creator's will that one person burns or tortures another. Personally, in the Creator that I know about anyway.
Azazel's job. Azazel's job.
Who?
Azazel.
Who's that?
One of the
You smart people.
archangels.
Oh.
I've read the book of Enoch, or parts of the book of Enoch last night. It was really good.
And they just from Nibiru and shit, and they coming back in a minute and all that stuff. Yeah. But in Genesis 6, it does say the sons of God was fucking the humans, so You know, who was that? You don't hear a lot of sermons about that, do you? You hear sermons about, don't you say shit. I mean, it's a pretty profound issue.
It talked extensively about the angels. I had a long chapter talking a lot about the end times and a lot about the angels who fell, and I guess excuse my language I would say, but I don't think I have to really say that in here. Who fell and fucked all the men. Who fucked the women and
the sheep and there was all the chimera and all that stuff.
And the children became the beast or became giants, and they brought evil and unrighteousness upon the people. It says at the end of the day that the beast and the entire lineage will be destroyed.
I mean, they're doing it now. They just call it science. All this genetic crap they're doing, and part of the theological issue with them screwing them goats and stuff is they were mixing the seed. They were changing the DNA.
Yeah, it uses the word seed a lot.
You know. So anyway, I don't get into all that stuff because in the end we can, and I've done it. I've read all that stuff. We can become lost in that fiction and spend years becoming a expert on the Book of Enoch and the Nephilim and whatever the other names they were. You know, are they grays? Do they look like this? Are they them people? Or are they lizards or whatever? But what I do know is in the book we call our scripture, it says that some beings from some place came and started screwing the humans because they was hot. And they created a mixed breed. And they became the mighty men of old. Yes, sir?
I know it doesn't really matter. I was out of curiosity. Why is the Book of Enoch not in the Bible? Actual.
That's a good question.
Good question.
It's quoted in the Bible.
Yeah, was that a paper world reason why Jimmy didn't put it in there because of his paper world didn't fit?
I would say so, but anyway, I don't get into that right now because that's another rabbit trail we can go down. You know, King Jimmy was not a very, very benevolent king. And there were all kind of political maneuvers going. I mean, when Constantine did his thing, you know, he saw a cross in the sky. Oh. I mean, that's how the story's told. And there's these, and out of all that stuff comes King Arthur and the Grail and out of the French folks anyway. And all that's fun and cool, and I want y'all to do that if you want to. But it can miss the point. You know?
Have all that knowing and never still know yourself.
And know God. Who am I? So, the main points I've taken out of this story that I've been told my whole life is I think they start in like chapter 12 instead of they go to chapter 1 and then they skip 18 chapters and they go, you know, to King David. And what I was trying to bring up yesterday is that the profound idea that there's a creator, we do not own the earth, we are stewards. And as a part of creation, we are also stewards of ourselves. And we have this idea that we are an idea, an image, a persona, playing out roles, developing character, dealing with the drama, trying to find resolution to the drama, and then learn our lesson. And that's part of how we teach kids. And there may be other words in there that I ain't thinking about. You're a good boy, you're a bad boy. You're a good character, you're a bad character. And I was noticing this what do you call them? 30-minute clips on new movies or whatever.
Previews?
Them things. And it was good versus evil. It was it's some new movie coming out. But that's what Hollywood promotes. I mean, that good versus evil, good versus evil. God versus the devil, the Constantine versus the other people. But at least in Constantine, he was a mixed bag, so maybe closer, But even in Constantine, he's trying to work his way into his own salvation, right? And all those kinds of stories, that's the only stories we've ever been taught, really. Is the good folks went and killed the Indian folks and took their shit.
Who said they were good? Who said
They did, because God told them to do it. If you're raised in England, then you'd have these stories about them Scottish people. If you were a Roman, you would learn about these barbarians that lived over there that needed Jesus. Just so happened we took their shit and killed them, but, and made them cut their hair so they all looked like Caesar.
Are we talking about the Indians right now?
No, we're talking about the Celts, but it's the same thing.
Enforcing the bureaucracy.
We want to civilize them. And that's kind of history. And whoever won gets to write the history. And we have no personal knowledge of that. It's all handed down to us. So we got a creator who says that, and to me this is, you don't even have to be spiritual about it. If you're a libertarian, if you're fighting the good, the argument is that the government didn't create nothing. I'm free on the earth because I have created. Just feel, even if you don't believe, the singularity. If you're just a materialist, whatever, that started the Big Bang. Even the materialists have to have a miracle to start. And then they go, well, it was just once, so we don't think about that no more. And then we get into what we talked about yesterday, this illusion that there's matter separate from spirit, whatever all that is. That's an illusion. It doesn't happen. And there seems to be some ongoing process with that. When we see the story of the garden, and we can spend decades arguing about whether that story is literally true, some kind of literal, what kind of fruit was it, was it a pomegranate, was it an apple, was it a... And we're taught all that stuff as though it's important. The only thing that's important is, how have you bitten the fruit? Did Jonah really go in a whale? Well, Jonah's dead. What matters is, what do you do when God calls you to go to Nineveh and you run? Right? That's where it's real. It ain't arguing about what kind of fish was it, and somehow, we found a real fish and a dead guy in a whale, so it's true. It's irrelevant except to the dead guy in the whale. The only thing that matters inside with you is, how are you trapped in the belly of the beast? And are you trapped in the belly of the beast? Or how are you squatting in the bushes, hiding from your Creator with fig leaves over your junk, acting like you don't have a load in your pants? That's the only thing that matters. Not whether Adam and Eve squatting in the bushes. That's Adam and Eve's deal. But what we have, I think, or at least I've experienced, is I have squatted in the bushes. I blamed other people. I blamed God for my problem. It's this woman you made. It's your fault. You made me horny. All y'all said that shit. You made me this way, or whatever.
Bitch.
You know? And the snake just sat there with his mouth shut. And then we talked a little bit about economics and God's, from what we learn from the stories and what we see in nature, in the natural world, that the natural created world, the idea of seeds. And what God intended for those folks and us, I think, is that He's the giver of the seeds, not Monsanto, not anybody else. And that we as stewards have rights and claims on those seeds, and we can go take those seeds and put them in dirt. And they'll multiply and multiply and multiply and multiply and multiply. I mean, really growing plants, other than, well, depending on where, if you're in Colorado maybe. But it's like making money. Printing your own money, except it's real. That's the natural thing. There's trees and there's seeds and there's stuff and there's plenty to eat for everybody. There's plenty of room for everybody.
The barter system that everybody used forever. I trade you this for this. It's tangible.
At some point, folks got tired of carrying 12 sheep on their back to go get a thing of lumber, so they said, well, we'll put little smiley faces on seashells and we'll just make that count for that. And it's just easier. But the seashells are not the value. Right? That's a fiction. That's a fiction that we agree on and play a game. I say this over and over lately, it's monopoly. No different at all. Because without monopoly, without the people to give that game life, there is no game. But you're not the little dog or the battleship or the... But sometimes we lose ourselves in the game and forget that we're real. And we have a fist fight over, you touched my little dog. You bastard. You stole money. No, they got a pink piece of paper that had a 50 on it or whatever color that is. As though it's real. The only thing real about it is us and our belief in the game and getting lost in it. But it's a game. I have some critique about the corporate churches present. I wasn't in 300 years ago, so I don't know. What I do know is whoever creates something owns it. That's the principle. That's the basis of all law. We use different words for it now, but creation implies sovereignty over it, control over it. I get to say what happens, and we have words like patents and trademarks, and that means that if I fill out a piece of paper with the government and say I claim the words Plato's groove, okay, then nobody's supposed to use that. Plato's groove's just words. But what we lose sometimes, I think, is the idea that who creates the patent? The state. So who ultimately owns that? The state. In that world. And that's how laws work. You know? And those are, and I talked about yesterday how our story teaches us that we have a creator that creates the natural world of man. Man creates what? Government. And then in American, we do the federal, the state, and the bureaucracy. And in the fictional world, because that's created by man, it turns everything upside down. And that's the trap. We think we're that. And that's why, we think Jesus, Jesus basically, his only crime was to say, I am not, in terms of this, he says, I'm not that. Caesar did not create me. The state does not own me. Nor does the Jewish religion own me. He was a practicing Jew, but he's maybe not intentionally broke laws in front of folks just to go make them jump up and down like Rumpelstiltskin. He was heavily engaged with, you're really not a whore. Remember who you are. Go and sin no more. Don't get lost in this again. Remember that God made you. And all the rules people go, he's hanging out with hookers and drunks. What's up with that? That ain't Christian or Jewish or whatever. That's not in line with our fiction. And I may be missing it, but never have I read or understood that Jesus encouraged us to become part of a religion. And I'm not dogging the church. Don't hear that. That's not what I'm saying. But if you come up in the church, you've had this, I'm guessing, some cognitive dissonance about, well, I'm doing what they say, but I'm not getting what I need. I'm in faith operating, I'm doing as best I know how to do, but I don't feel the radical whatever change in me. And then we'll be in the garden again, Shane, all this stuff covered up, and go, well, I just need to work harder.
Doesn't it say to go, build my church upon this rock? And
What's the rock?
Christ.
so,
Christ wants a relationship, not an ordinance.
Jesus was talking to Peter when he said that. And Peter had just said, you are the Christ. And what does a relationship with Christ mean? Does it mean that I say the doctrine right? What if I'm Japanese? I can't speak King Jimmy. What if I'm from Zimbabwe? And I go, Zifunze, Ugere, Papo, roll, 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 dead of a chain, name mama, kana ukafa, what am I singing about? It feels good, don't it?
so can you be part of the church and not part of the religion?
Yeah. Or I don't. It's not about that. It's about being in it and not of it. Churches. Who makes churches?
Organized.
The state creates the fiction called the 5013C.
The physical church.
That's not physical. That's on paper.
But we see it visible. We have the visible and invisible church.
What's the difference?
The visible church is the church that's not seen in the house. It's seen in relationship. The individual relationship with Christ is not a part of the corporate visible church.
How do we make distinctions between that? Define that. How does that operate?
Spirit of truth. I
What does that mean?
mean, teach others to thrive, I suppose.
What does that mean?
All right.
That's the only answer. Because the other stuff you're saying is just words. It's an idea. But whoever creates it owns it. Because, and I'm not picking at you, baby, it's just knowledge doesn't come in words. You know? And we have this anxiety, oh, I got to say it, or and that's kind of weird, he's going to go to hell, or lightning's going to strike me for him saying shit, Jesus is not a Christian, or whatever. You know? The Christian church was created by who?
Humans.
Caesar. Rome.
Christopher Columbus.
The Anglican church was created by who? England.
Kings, yeah, English, that.
Christopher Columbus.
Shut up. The corporate entity that we join, or Baptists we used to have letters, and you'd have a membership, you'd be on the roll, right?
All I say is raise your
I don't know, yeah, man.
Any opposed? Same sign.
Same sign.
So carried.
We had
You're at
300.
the church now, you come up front now, come down and shake your hand. Tell them how happy we are with everybody.
And when we joined that church, we signed or used to, I don't even know what they do now. These are our behavioral, specific, especially in the Baptist church.
Check the boxes.
We don't drink, we don't cuss, we don't chew tobacco, we don't hang out with girls that do those things. Or whatever. Do they still do that in churches? When you join churches?
You fill out a long sheet of paper, yeah.
Church of God Christ, they go through the rules of the church and the body that they go on.
And so who are you pledging your allegiance to at that point when you join?
Church. You're making an oath to the church.
To the
State.
to the paper church.
Just stand in the parking lot and smoke and see how they all look at you when they come out the door. How dare you?
And I'm not saying that's evil or bad or anything. It's fine. But the issue is, the spiritual real issue, the unspeakable issue is how you apparently by permission or whatever in free will said, this is how I'm going to abide with y'all. This is my life. I choose to abide by these rules. Right? When you came here. Fill out a piece of paper, yeah, I love Jesus, and da-da-da, and and you're going, Dad, the judge is going to get me if I don't write such a shit, so, my wife's going to divorce me, or my kids are not going to like me no more, so, whatever I'm guessing most folks, maybe there's some folks here, came here out of duress, not to come find Jesus. It was trying to resolve some drama, not to whatever. And that's not bad, it's fine. But the real stuff is when we start bumping up against the law the law here is those rules. And when we start bumping up against those rules and we start stepping outside of them, That's where the spiritual, real, whatever word you want to use, you can get access to. When Paul says the law kills, it does. Because to be subject to the law is only half of it, part of it, it's not real. If it's the paper law. The real law is that I'm created by God, I'm a steward, I'm a trustee. Any of y'all legal people? What's a trustee?
Someone that's over.
You have access, you can do within certain bounds. And the economic, and basically, Jesus summed up the law. What did he say?
You got to put God first.
No.
Whoever's against me,
Do unto others
Oh,
as you would have them do unto you. Right?
Love one another.
Love God as whatever that is. So this is the law and the prophet, he said in a sentence and a half. But we get lost in all the laws and the prophets and miss so much. I was thinking about you. You know, you just want me to entertain you yesterday? And I wanted to say, in love, I'm not here for your fucking entertainment or to help distract you. Okay? And I don't mean that in an ugly way. And you know, I don't care. Anyway. Your distraction is God's calling in your life, or that boredom is God calling you to a new life. If I entertain you, I sin against you. If I indulge your intellectual, this is fun. It's like me turning on a movie and letting you watch it, and then you waste another hour of your existence. What I want to say now is, figure out what your boredom's about, then come talk to me. It's not my job to do your work. That's the law. Does that make any sense, baby? You know? Because the only addiction and idolatry to me is the same, synonymous words. They're exactly the same thing. And our addiction is not to necessarily, we have different forms of it, just like we have different forms of sins, you know, and depends on where you're at, if that's counted as one or not, is our addiction to the fiction, to the false, that says I am not a creature of God, that says I am all this stuff, that I am not free. If we believe our story, we're free already. Except to the extent that we don't allow this to die. Our addiction is to that, and this whole thing is anxiety-based and thinking. Yesterday, you got to a place where you wasn't craving, you wasn't wanting to off yourself, you wasn't feeling all, I'm ashamed and I got poo-poo in my pants and kill me, you know. You wasn't, that wasn't even real no more. Right. And you didn't do anything. You quit doing things. You for a moment, you let go of the grasping to be God of a universe that only exists in your mind. And as soon as you did that, it's just chill. Jesus says, take my load, my burden upon you. but it's light. But we go, okay, but I got to go work some more, and then I'll come back and do that shit. I got to think some more. I got to have a real tight butt so I can be righteous. And that is such a narcissistic presumption on God. It's the spirit of Antichrist.
Sometimes we want to put on the God suit.
All the time we want to put on the God suit. Because we're the ones that created government. Or we continue to create it by our functioning, and then we turn around and blame the government. Don't be mad at the government, it's us. Like I said that yesterday. You can't change the system. The system is what it is. It's fiction. It has its own nature. The system will change when the real people change. Not because you got a red guy in there this time or a blue guy in there next time. That's all bullshit that we perpetrate on ourselves. Because we have forgotten that there's a creator, that I'm a steward. I don't own anything. Then I have access to the natural world and the Creator made for me, and for me to be blessed and prosperous and free. But the demonic Antichrist impulse is we want to be ruled over. So then we can blame and gripe and stay hidden in the bushes with a shit load in our pants. I need the government to tell me that black folks is good or white folks is good, or I sewed a vacuum cleaner hose to my asshole, so I want special rights. You better affirm my right to sew a vacuum cleaner hose to my asshole, or we're going to march, you bastards. As though that is who that person is. I'm not gay, I'm not straight, I'm not white, I'm not black, ultimately. When I get lost in those labels, guess where I'm lost? In the fiction. They talk about groups all the time and demographics, and that's just sorcery. Have you ever met women? Women don't exist. That's an illusion. Particular females exist. There are no men. There are particular individual men. You know, do all blacks think the same? No, hell no. Do all whites think the same? Hell no. But in our media, they say black folks, white folks, gay folks, this folks, that folks, as though it's real. It's not real. Do you think like every gay person has ever been in the world? Hell no. Yes. Okay. You're just trying to get next to the cross? Okay.
You sure you don't have a question? I'm not that crazy about watermelon.
See? I love watermelon.
Wait a minute.
They've been lying to me.
And I grew up, baby, I grew up on Earth, Wind and Fire and Parliament and Merle Haggard. So,
So what you are is not who you are. So what you are isn't who you are. I'm a heroin addict, but that's not who I am.
Hey, I hope not. As long as you're a heroin addict,
That's what I am, not who I am.
that's not who you are, no. That's your role, that's your role
You're
here.
right, that's not who I am, because who I am is my identity. My
And
identity is not a heroin addict.
your identity is
Okay, I get this. My identity is in Jesus, in whatever.
what?
But,
Don't even say that. You're created by another.
okay. So, what I do,
And there was a guy named Jesus that says, if y'all want to get to that other, come do what I did. Okay?
I get it.
Because, and Jesus ain't this or that. The scandal of the gospel was that God shit in a hole and covered it up, like the rest of us. Jesus said, I am the firstborn of many brethren, didn't he? Or did Paul say that? One of them. Paul, if Paul said it, he wasn't referring to himself, he was referring to Christ, Jesus. Whatever Jesus was, we're supposed to be also. He's our big brother.
I feel like I can't do that.
You can't. That's the deal. Quit trying. That's what I'm saying. No, you're trying to hold on to, I'm an addict. I'm a heroin guy. That's what you're clinging to. Because he was fucked up last week.
But I'm a heroin addict, just like I'm white.
As long as you want to be.
You see what I mean?
But ultimately, that's not who
I'm
you
not like
are.
claiming that on my life or, carrying that around or putting that on my forehead or wearing a t-shirt that says that.
Who come up with the concept of heroin addict?
Heroin addicts? I don't know.
It's that you're wrong.
It's an idea.
Probably a doctor.
It's some words that somebody put together. Anyway, listen to me. Yesterday, what you was doing under the bridge or whatever he's doing, but yesterday for 5-10 minutes, you reincarnated your body. You wasn't trying to do nothing. And there were no sins. There were no shame. There was no nothing.
Peace and freedom.
And whose will is that for you?
God's.
The one that made you.
It's because he was distracted.
No, this is the distraction, baby. That's what you'll get it one day.
I know, I will.
You will. But you're trying too hard.
Maybe.
Because you're not going to figure it out with your words and your thoughts.
Alright. I don't know how
Because
to
also in the Old Testament, it says, be still. And know. Not thinking no.
Alright.
That's why when we was talking to the Reverend over there, when he got to I don't know, he started dipping into the deep stuff.
Right. I don't really think I know anything, but I'd like to know something.
Well, that's important because if you want to be free, you need to know the truth. Not just think about it.
Right.
Man, we did that last week or the week before.
Believe and not believe is different than know. I can believe it but not know it. But you know it, going to be tangible in your life.
Shut up. Just breathe.
You know I do. That's what I do the whole time you're talking. I just don't speak it.
Just feel it. And if you feel angry, just feel that and go, that's interesting. If you agree, go, that's interesting. And let the Holy Spirit or the Spirit of God or however you want to talk about that reveal things to you rather than you trying to figure it out.
Right.
Because the knowledge is going to come from back in here, not in the front of your head. At least that's how it is for me. Does that make sense, Reverend? It's a revelation. You're not creating it. You're not figuring it out. Because as long as I'm trying to figure... Again, I don't know how it is for anybody else. But anything that I've ever written, done, whatever, it wasn't about me that was decent. It was about me writing down what I was seeing, not figuring it out and making it all clever. And I did that for years, and I got pieces of paper that says I'm a clever mofo and whatever. And I used to could read Greek and Hebrew and all that stuff, and so, whoa, don't talk to me because I can read this shit, Which Greek and Hebrew is just another set of symbols. And I think we established yesterday that governments, in the sense of kingship, was not God's intention for the Hebrew people. Now they call it democracy, but it's basically the same thing, except it's ruled by corporations. They used to call them serfs, and then they called them slaves, and then they called, but it's, you know, the function hadn't changed. Y'all know what serfs are? Or the idea of serfs?
No.
In medieval times,
They're like sharecroppers, basically, for the barons and the dukes and the whatever. They didn't own no property. They got to go sharecrop, basically. And then the owners, by paper, because the king wrote a piece of paper that says you can control these artificial, we draw an artificial line around certain boundaries. And then whatever comes out of that, out of the creator's thing, you can have sovereignty over. Except you collect taxes from these people, they owe you 20 pounds of taters this week, or whatever. And then you take 5 of them pounds of taters and give them to the king. And then the king, you know, whatever the king does. Because what happens if today somebody says to the government, I'm a created person by God and I don't need your permission to go fishing.
they slap you with a fine and say, we'll show you.
Did the government create the fish?
No.
Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe a Montana fisher.
They did create the genetically mutated chickens.
They got all kinds of special houses.
No, they came down from someplace and fucked the chickens and changed them. That's the same. They messed with the seed.
6 foot tall chickens and shit.
And then they were, because they had a piece of paper that says we modified this piece of gene on this little thing, that we have a patent on that. And then the state's going to back them because it's in the paper rules stuff.
They did create the hot dog.
What if you say the IRS is an illegal operation, which it is.
It is, it was never,
I know. And that I don't want to file no more. And so you don't.
Take a shove.
They do.
All your shit.
Because you are a citizen of the federal corporation that it resides in 23 square miles in the District of Columbia. And you're under their paper. And as long as you believe you're there, that's you. But you can't do that and then go, well, I don't want no food stamps. Jesus said, give back to Caesar what is Caesar's. And then you won't be his bitch. And I ain't done nothing about it yet, but I'm thinking I might. I'm trying to figure that out. What, baby?
I was about to say, how do you ever become not their bitch?
Well, there's ways to do that.
Without having severe consequences, there is at this point.
There are people that have figured that out. But you have to give up your rights and privileges as a citizen of the Federal Corporation of America.
You can't go live somewhere they don't own, and they're not going to charge.
Well, they don't own it to start with. It's all because it's still legal. They have to follow their own rules. They can get people that are just rule followers to go beat you up and make you shut up. I mean, what Benjamin Franklin said when they signed the Declaration was, we will either band together or we will hang separately. You know? And their whole deal, they were not all Christians in the sense of Christians, but they all had an affirmation that the world had a creator that had immutable rights, that we had immutable rights from our creator. I mean, they don't teach you shit in school. That's why I got a government school. So you love the government. And then someone said after they got it all done, they go, well, here it is. Let's see how long they can keep it. And then slowly and steadily, people get bribed and this and that and the other. And we're scared, so come fix us. And it's the same pattern with the Hebrew folks. No different. They were in Egypt, and there arose a Pharaoh who didn't know Joseph after 400 years, and he started making them work, and da-da-da-da-da, and they cried and moaned and cried and moaned. And send us, help us, whatever. And so Moses, he's going to fight the power. When he's a young man, kill a dude, and he thinking everybody's going to rise up in the revolution, baby. And they go, and he runs off, and for decades and decades and decades, he's like Uncle Rico throwing his football at the video camera. The coach would have just what I could have been, man. I was driving my Lexus and my thing, and I had all these bitches, and you know, and I was up in the Pharaoh's house, and man, I was something. And then after a while, he's walking them same old circles with his little sheeps and stuff on the same old path, if only, if only, if only. And then he sees a bush burning and he goes, And I'm thinking, that must have been a day when Moses was thinking about what he could have been. Had air conditioning and shit. Now he's out here in the desert. People go get him stuff. He was a baller up in the clubs and stuff, you know.
Right.
He got people to go steal Rolexes for him. Whatever. I mean, Rain Man comes from Egypt. It's the sky god that squirts his sperm on us. That's what Rain Man is. He's not Judge Walton. I mean, it's all religious, all of it. Popular culture is a religion. Just like we got Christian worship, there's Rihanna and Katy Perry. It's religion. It's not, oh, listen to the beat, that's so cool. While they're in the Super Bowl fucking each other in the ass. And we go, oh, that's so great. Lady Gaga fell from the sky. And that was just Lucifer falling with the stars and stuff. That's all that was. But we worried about this, that, and Facebook memes, and I'm going to kill you with my like. It's all fiction. I don't even know where I was going. Let's see. I need to wrap it up, don't I?
Yes, sir.
Religion. Oh, anyway. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am God. I am your creator. You can't fix something you ain't made. You do not have sovereignty over anything except for this. My idea of myself as a heroin addict. Mm-hmm. You're not a heroin addict. God don't create heroin addicts. Mm-hmm. You created a heroin addict. And as long as you're clinging to I'm a heroin addict, you're playing God. Okay? But that's the real addiction, not the heroin. You could have been a cross-dresser guy that liked to wear panties after a stressful day.
So I'm not.
You know, or you might be. I don't know. It's the same thing. And dress up is playing I'm this. I'm really not that. I have this dissatisfaction in me, so I'm going to wear lace thongs and some hose and put some lipstick on. That's pretend. You know, I was talking to him yesterday about the masturbation stuff. There's nothing wrong with your junk producing squirty stuff. But generally, if I've ever done that once, just to try it out, I was in a world of fantasy. You know? The sin ain't the squirting, or the sin, not. The sin is, I think that's me. I ain't my body. My body's part of who I am in this particular manifestation that God created and But I'm not my flesh. I'm more than that. I am my flesh too. But I think more profoundly I am that which does not have any words for. It's the place where groanings too deep for words emerges. That's where I'm going to encounter God. That's where the Holy Spirit's supposed to be. That's His job description, or hers, or its, or whatever. So if I want to know God, I have to be still. In my experience and in the stories, the law kills. It does not give life. And the main critique, or one of the main critiques Jesus had about the synagogue of Satan he was talking about, was they were all focused on the law and teaching other people to be focused on the law. And that gave them some kind of illusion of righteousness and connection and power and authority and whatever. So, I'm trying to figure out a way to say this that I ain't said 100 times. It's not either or, it's both and, that transcends either or. When we talked about Paul yesterday, it's not good or bad. It's not flesh or spirit. That's what the incarnation is that it's spirit in flesh, fully. And it transcends both. And then you can walk through walls and stuff. Sweet. So start meditating, and then maybe one day you can walk through walls. Or I don't even like the word meditation because it has all these weird connotations to it. You know, people think of guys in orange robes with shaved heads going, That in itself is not the end, it's a means. Some folks have taken ayahuasca and had a new kind of shift. Or my buddy Scott was here, and he's his church is LSD and the Grateful Dead, and I don't think that's any more unreal than the corporate churches, because we get hung on the illusion, not the reality, because there's nothing wrong with saying the world ain't quite what I thought it was. That's important. But if you cross a river in a boat, you don't pick up the boat and pack it with you the whole time. You go see, once you get through that door, any of y'all done LSD? No? All y'all? Reality is not a kaleidoscope either. Reality is not a wall going, wah, wah, wah. That's still tied to the senses. The government made it illegal because they want you to be trapped there, in my opinion. Just like, because I'm not a pothead and I don't care one way or another, but just the whole idea that cannabis, hemp, is outlawed has nothing to do with anything except the petroleum, plastics, and the pharmaceutical industries and stuff. And the private prisons. And do you know what happens when you get a case against you? Because the court's money. It's a bank. You know what bonds are?
Yeah, had to do those.
Well, bond's a piece of paper. Okay? And you're paying for it, but the county takes those bonds and puts them on the stock market, just like any other bond. And the more bonds they got, the more, you know. I mean, that's the system, and there's people that know lots more about this than me, but because this system is diametrically opposed to owner self-sovereignty, not even sovereignty, but stewardship or self, and freedom. This is about bondage, period. Y'all know how the fiat currency works? They don't teach this in school, do they? In 1913, if you read the, do it or not, but anyway, central banks started doing this thing. I don't have time to get into it really, but in 1913, when the Federal Reserve was established in this fiction, because used to America had to print their own money, you know, or by law, by constitutional, whatever. And then that punk bitch, well, no, it wasn't Kennedy, it was like Truman or one of them, or Wilson, Woodrow, established this Federal Reserve. Guess what happened soon after that? Social Security, birth certificates, all this stuff. Because used to, the old folks would record births and marriages and stuff in their Bible. And that was legal, whatever legal was. And then basically what the Fed does, do y'all know what part of government the Federal Reserve is? It is this part of the federal government. It's a private corporation. And the income taxes you pay do not go to the government. Guess where they go? The Federal Reserve, to pay the interest on the debt. I mean, there's 4,700 other taxes we pay hidden and whatever. But the income tax goes to pay them, because what happens is the Fed gets on their computer and says, let's make $100 trillion. And guess what they do to do that? They get on their computer and write a 1 with a bunch of zeros. Like magic, they create it out of nothing. Then they loan that to the government at interest. Paper and debt is what money is now. It has nothing to do with value. It has to do with, let's get them to write a piece of paper, sign a piece of paper, and it creates a balance on somebody's books. So, and then they've got it now where the Fed, the banks only have to have 10% of ones and zeros on their account of what they're lending out. So if you lend $1, if the bank has $1 on their account, they can pretend that they have 10 and lend it to somebody else.
That doesn't make sense.
Oh, it makes a lot of sense if you're the Fed.
I get it. I get that sense, but
It don't make sense, baby. It don't make sense unless you know the intent is to keep you enslaved in a system that don't exist. It's only on paper, or now computers. That's the system that Paul was talking about.
so the tax checks also come from the Federal Reserve or the federal government.
The Treasury, whatever that is. The Treasury guy, I think the U.S. Treasury is based in Panama anyway. Corporately. Because it's corpse, which is a dead thing, and it's paper.
Okay.
Anyway, and this ain't conspiracy stuff, but it is a conspiracy. Because what if they said that the income tax is voluntary? This is what happened to us. They said, because I guess it's still called a voluntary tax, ain't it? We don't read it, we just sign shit. Okay? And they go, you must voluntarily give us money. And it's all, and no matter, because as soon as they give this to the government, there's a debt. There's not enough money in circulation to pay off any debt. By its nature, it's not. There's no way. If they take all the money from everybody, we'd still owe the Fed money. If they take all the money and give it to them, we'd still be in their debt. And this is diametrically opposed to the Creator's will for us. Right? This is, oh crap. Because his economics works with you get something for nothing and then you can multiply it as much as you want to. This is exactly the opposite. That's why it feels so hopeless when we're lost in here. Because we're experiencing debt and servitude and bondage. And we don't know why. We think, well, if I get them new Converse, then that'll free me. If I can try this new drug, that'll be the thing. Or if this new woman, or if I can get a bigger door at my house because my neighbor's has a little one, then I'll be whatever. If I can have shiny this or that or the other or the new Apple. How many sheep line up for hours to get the new Apple? And they got it now. You can't take them apart, so you can't take the chip out of it. That's why it has this thing in there. And technology in itself, there's nothing wrong with it. Anymore, there's something wrong with a hammer. But we have become deluded and tricked by something we created. Our servants have become the masters. And we go, okay, master.
Okay, Siri.
And they've gone from the original Constitution, which is itself a fiction, so it's better than something else, I guess. It's better than being involved in the slave trafficking they have their own fiction. You're bad, so you need me, you bitch, I'm the pimp.
Right.
That's the same story we're being told, just more shiny. It's not true. The little girl she's not a bitch or whore or whatever or need this piece of shit. But she believes it, so she gives it life. Does that make sense? A little bit?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And what Jesus calls us to do is to let this die. And it hurts. It's scary. Because it's all about fear. Well, what if I give up my Social Security that ain't going to be there anyway? And it's all based on numbers on a computer. It's an illusion of security. If I give that back to Caesar, what's going to happen? Well, they'll come throw me in jail, or they'll do this, or they'll do that. It's all fear. So if y'all say shit on me on the TV, I ain't done it. But put some money on my book one day. Because there ain't no magic. And they still got people that'll go do shit to you. But in the end, where's the line you won't cross? Because remember, Paul said, get along with everybody, pray for them, da-da-da. But at some point, the state killed him. Because there was some line there that he wouldn't cross. The state is not his God. And I'm not trying to incite insurrection or whatever, because we are the government. Don't be mad at something that we made and we sustain it. I mean, the whole mess would change in a week if everybody in the world, or 20% of the folks that are actually doing something, would just go, nope. The whole mess would crumble. And I bet we'd still have roads, and we'd have tomatoes, and, you know. We'd figure out how to get some water and electricity. You know, in Florida, it's illegal to live off the grid. What's that about with all that sunshine? You know, in some states, it's illegal to collect rainwater. What's that about? In my neighborhood, you can't grow tomatoes in your front yard. Because I signed a piece of paper. Is that immoral?
Pretty much.
So anyway, I need to shut up.
Methodists are getting out and eat lunch. Baptists is keeping us.
The Pentecostals will be on for another hour. So, if it's good. Get my James Brown going, baby. Whoop! Then the drum will start with the shout music and the organist. I ain't gay no more.
Holy shit. You can play football now.
Does it feel any different than me talking about this stuff in the real world than it does talking about a Sunday school lesson, or? Yes, no?
It's more relatable.
Question. I'm confused by the question. What do you mean, is this different than the other classes?
No, I'm not. It's not about me. I'm trying to communicate, because I think it's real. I don't think it's some theoretical bullshit.
What's real?
This story.
Oh, yeah, the Bible, yeah, 100%.
It's not.
No, not the Bible. The reality that the Bible tries to describe.
100% true.
So, how is that going to affect you?
It's probably going to leave me very bitter and resentful.
Why?
Because we have no choice but to live in some degree of fiction. There's no other alternative. No, there's not.
You got to do the other thing first, baby. You won't even write a simple thing. So shut up. Okay? Quit being a bitch. Okay? It's fear that keeps you there. It's what I'm saying. And you want to argue, you were arguing with me, telling me that you're a heroin addict.
Right.
You're clinging to that.
Yes, sir.
I just want to be a dumb sheep.
Well, you can't be. God made you. God didn't make dumb sheep except for out there in the dumb sheep people, or dumb sheep animals. God made you Nick, or the one known as Nick, would be more precise. Because in the end, you're going to get a white stone with a new name on it. Who you really are. You ain't Nick. Fucker. You hear me? Alright, y'all go back. Oh, that's Rolex boy, ain't it?
It's all black.
Yeah.